This Sunday, October 22nd at 2 p.m., the Women's Musical Club of Winnipeg will be presenting a concert called The Slavic Soul. The concert takes place at CMU's Laudamus Auditorium and will feature two musicians that are very familiar to Winnipeg audiences, cellist Paul Marleyn and pianist Madeline Hildebrand. As the title of the concert suggests, the concert will feature music by Slavic composers such as Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff, but also lesser-known composers such as Gayan Charbortayan and Rodion Sherdrin. In addition, the concert will also feature a commissioned work for the WMC for their 130th anniversary written by Manitoba composer Karen Sunabaka. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about Sunday's concert, I am joined by Madeline Hildebrand. Hey, Maddie, it's great to have you here.
Hi, Chris. So nice to be back. This is my first interview in studio since I think
pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah. So nice to be back in person here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. Speaking of new things happening, little birdie tells me that you just completed your DMA at Stony Brook in New York.
That's right.
Big congratulations. How does it feel to be done?
Thank you. Well, right. Okay, so my DMA, that stands for Doctorate of Musical Arts. It feels amazing to be done. I had the most richest experience, and not only do I feel like I'm worthy of that degree and certificate, but also I just had the very, very best time. I made lifelong friendships, and I had a wonderful time in the city, New York City, and on Long Island, which is where Stony Brook is situated. And my heart is full, and that being said, it's great to be back here on home territory to work and play.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you're going to be performing this Sunday with Paul Marleyn. Can you talk about how the program came together? It's called Slavic Soul. There's some real cello hits on the program, such as the Rachmaninoff Vocalise and the David Popper Hungarian Rhapsody. But also there's music from farther afield. Can you talk about how the process came together of scheduling it?
Sure. Well, Paul, it's kind of simple, actually. Paul asked if I would be willing to play with him in a concert, to craft a program together and to find venues to play it. And so that's how it started. But yeah, you're right. The program is beautiful. It's varied. And although it seems like maybe, music from one area of the world, it sounds almost like it could be one-dimensional, but it is entirely not. So just because this music comes from this Slavic area, Eastern European region, we still are featuring composers, for example, like Sherdrin, who wrote this piece in the style of Albanese. So it's this fiery piece that harkens to Spanish flavors and almost like guitar-like flamenco patterns. So there's that. And then we also have some real hits on the program, like Prokofiev's Cello Sonata, which is, I don't know if it's fair to say that I have a favorite piece on the program. It's like saying that you have a favorite child. But the piece, it's just... Prokofiev, for me, has always been so much fun to play because not only is it just really athletic, the third movement especially is I'm going to say it borders on silly. Yeah. And I hope that that's maybe a movement that you can play for our audience of listeners. So it's just a rip-roaring good time.
Yeah.
So
and one of the things that really struck me about the program is you're not accompanying. The piano is totally playing a dual role throughout the program. Yeah. There's these wonderful harmonies and textures that are created by both instruments. And there's a lot of interplay, in particular in Prokofiev, as you just mentioned, but also the Janáček Pohodka. What, for you as a pianist, what is the most challenging thing about this program?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, you mentioned Janáček, and now I feel like, maybe I have two favorite children in this program. I think it says a lot when the musicians who are playing in the program just really love the music, first of all. But what is challenging about this program? I would just say like the fistfuls of notes, basically. So getting it under your fingers, and for some of this music was new to me, so getting those notes under my fingers is the challenge. But I mean, it's coming along. It's basically there, and so challenge no more.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just major minor harmonies that you're playing. There's a lot of like,
that's right,
modal stuff.
And you mentioned this. You mentioned Janacek because I think that this is. Have you ever listened to a composer where you feel like, wow, I didn't realize that harmonies like that could exist? Yeah. Where it feels like there's a new sound world opening up to you, and I mean, to put it simply, these composers are making decisions to put certain varieties and organizations of notes together, right? But then to find a composer that has done this in a way that nobody has ever thought of can be like what you thought was the universe is actually completely different. It's ground rocking and breaking. And that's how I feel about Janacek's Pohádka. And he does this in the most, I use big words like rocking your world and groundbreaking, but he does this in the most gentle sense. And the piece is all about a fairy tale, which we will explain in the concert.
It's great. It's got a great story. There's also a couple of programs on the program that I very often associate with sort of meditative sheer beauty. Valentin Silvestrov. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I mostly know Silvestrov through his choral music.
Okay.
And then the other composer on the program is Arvo Pärt. You're going to be playing his absolutely stunning Spiegel im Spiegel. I don't know the Silvestrov piece. What's it like? Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Silvestrov. So first of all, let's talk about who Silvestrov is, because this is important to say.
Yeah.
He is a Ukrainian composer that, of course, has recently relocated to Berlin, which is where he's now living. So Silvestrov is a very meditative composer because he incorporates a lot of silence in his music. And the silence almost becomes the sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as I've been working on this piece of music, I've noticed that like a big moment for him is like when the pedal changes.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we necessarily think as kind of, an important musical moment in a piece, right? Pianists that are well-versed in the instrument, their foot will be moving without even thinking about it, right? But Silvestrov makes very poignant decisions with how he clears harmony and how he introduces harmony slowly. So that piece, Epitaph, is it's a 7-minute piece that is kind of just like it just kind of resets us in the concert.
And how does it compare to the Spiegel im Spiegel of Pärt?
Oh, well, the Spiegel im Spiegel is, I would say that Pärt is using like minimalist techniques. Okay. So there's a lot of repetitive patterns. So the piano part repeats this major chord over and over and over and over, with the cello sustaining long tones and with little bell tones coming out of the piano, just very sparsely and intermittently. And so they're absolutely kind of like a pair, like both meditations, but meditative in two different ways. One using silence and the other using repetition.
One of the other pieces on the program that you're going to be performing, you got to help me out with the name of the composer.
Yes.
Gayan
Chabotarian.
So I butchered his name in the intro.
Her name, yes.
Her name, yes, that's right. I was in the depths of YouTube this morning and I found your video of playing them for your DMA recital. They're great pieces. Yeah. Where did you discover them?
That's a great question. I discovered Gayan Chabotarian, who was an Armenian composer in the mid-20th century. I think the same way many classical musicians discover composers that they may have not known previously. I was listening. I was actually listening to Spotify.
Yeah.
And it was just an algorithm. I was listening to some Eastern European music, and an algorithm suggested, wait, you know what? No, I'm lying. I can think of this. I was listening to, again, Spotify, an album by a violinist who has Brandon roots. His last name is Bowman.
Ben.
Yeah, Ben Bowman.
Yeah.
And I was listening to his trio. I think they're called the Amici Trio.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what brought me to that album, but I noticed that there was a composer that I didn't know. And I said, well, who's that? So I clicked on the link, and it was a beautiful piano trio. And I just loved the sound of this piano trio. So I thought, I have to find out what else this composer has done. So I looked at her catalog, and I saw that she had piano preludes. So I found those piano preludes, and I gave them a listen. And I thought, these are so amazing and lyrical, yet so modal and interesting. They don't really sit in a Western tonality.
Yeah.
And I was just so excited about the music, so I went on to this really great website. Please visit it if you're a pianist, pianorarescores.com. I found this rare score, and I started playing it. And I'm so pleased that so many people are now learning about Gayan Cheboterian, because I'm telling people, and they're starting to program her music. And so these are actually piano preludes, and we're going to play, Paul and I are going to play one of them that together we have arranged for cello and piano. So that's how that works. Yeah.
I guess the other real big highlight on the program is that you and Paul are going to be joined by WSO violin installation Pauls to perform Karen Sunabaka's piece, Embroidered with Jagged Patterns.
Yes.
The title's got a great backstory. Can you tell us about the title and where the inspiration for the piece came from?
Sure. Well, the piece is sort of a commentary, celebration on Karen's mother and Karen's mother's sister's relationship. And these two sisters grew up very close, had a very kindred connection. So Karen has taken the names of her mother and her aunt, so Joyce and Beverly, and has converted the names into musical notation. And those are the themes that are in this piece. Now, because of Bev and Joyce's relationship, Karen has decided to write kind of like a playful exchange, kind of fantasy sort of setting of music that reflects not only their almost like just kindred spiritual connection, but also their playful connection. So it is quite a fun little ride, and I'm really looking for the very cool thing about a brand new piece and a commission is that there's not like a recording to reference, well, how does this sound? How's this supposed to fit together? So that's one of the most exciting things about playing new music and working with composers is you get to create that sound together, and the sound that the composer has, in their head is you get to create that in a live experience for the very first time. It's a very honored position. It's a very kind of like sacred relationship between the composer and the performer. So it's a real pleasure to get to participate in that.
And the title, my understanding, comes from a poem actually written by Karen's mom, Joyce. The last line of the poem is, "The inner lives entwined, embroidered with jagged patterns."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It sounds really, really great. I'll wrap up the conversation by asking you, for you, what is it that you find particularly satisfying about playing composers from Eastern Europe and Slavic composers?
Oh, that's a great question. I find that there is a real lyrical nature, but I also, because of the tradition of, just European music in general, there's a real show-offiness. If I can make a new word up. So much of this program feels so athletic.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I just feel like, my arms and my hands are working up into a lather. And to get to experience that athleticism with another musician is just really exciting. And also, I have to mention that this concert and this music is going to just vibrate so perfectly in the Laudamus Auditorium at CMU.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space.
That hall is so... there's not a bad seat in the hall. every seat, this bold, rich sound just hits the listener. And the piano that the stage houses is a real treat to play. It's a massive Bosendorfer. It feels like you're kind of the captain of this amazing ship. And to play this athletic music on such a great, big, vibrant piano is very exciting.
And it's going to be great. Maddie, the concert on Sunday at 2 o'clock at CMU's Laudamus Auditorium sounds like it's going to be just great. Where can people go to get tickets?
Tickets can be purchased on the Women's Musical Club website. That's www.wmcwpg.ca. So that's WMC Winnipeg, WMCWPG.ca. Or you can call this phone number, 204-944-9431. Or you can just purchase them at the door. And there's a great price for under 30. It's $20. And for children... who, of course, are happily encouraged to come under 5 are $5. And so I hope that we get a nice, bold audience because this is going to be a bold concert.
Yeah, it's a remarkable program. Maddie, it's just been so great seeing you again. All the best to you, Paul, and Elation on Sunday. I'm sure it's going to be just excellent. And thanks for taking the time to stop by and chat with me today.
Thanks so much, Chris.